There we are.
We're unmuted, ready to go. Make sure your mic.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our Conisty Fall Board meeting on Tuesday, today, the 23rd. First, I call this meeting to order. Second, I'll entertain a motion to approve our minutes from a special board meeting on October 20th, 2020 and December 7th, 2020. Second, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Thank you. And on our agenda, we have it listed that the president's report comes next, but instead we're going to just follow with the general manager's report. And I'll comment on anything I feel like after that, but rather than risk duplication there, we're going to handle it that way today. So Jim, if you'd like to.
Thank you. Thanks, Raj. Hello, everybody. It's been a while. So my report is a little lengthy, I guess, but I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can, but I want to make sure that everyone knows what's going on in the community. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So we continue to operate under revised phase 3 guidelines, which are revised as of, again, 2 o'clock this afternoon. Governor Cooper did make some changes to phase 3 guidelines, and he did remove some restrictions. So we are looking at that to determine how that will impact operations, but it appears that it will allow us to reopen, and we'll talk about some of that as we go through. But right now, the food and beverage operation is limited to the 50% capacity, and as of his new update, it will be at 75%. And the gathering numbers have also been changed from 25 inside to 50, and then 50 outside to 100 outside. So hopefully you all saw in the clubhouse update that went out on Saturday that we have our first main event, if you want to call it, our beta test event, coming up on April 3rd, which will provide music from a band called Frontline. That is a reservation-only event, so if you have not, please make sure you make reservations for that. But we'll use that as a test to determine how we're going to go forward, check out everyone's behavior on how everyone acts and so forth, because that's going to be a big determinant of how we can move forward if we can all make sure that we are adhering to the policies, which still will be mask required anytime you're not sitting at a table within a food and beverage operation, so that will not change whether you've been vaccinated or not. When you're in a public setting, which we're considered, because we are a restaurant facility and a community gathering area, the mask rules will stay in place whether you're vaccinated or not until further notice, and he lists that restriction. So we're looking forward to doing that before his announcement this afternoon. Our plan was to try to reopen, give or take, on April 15th for lunch and dinner services, with lunch being served probably 6 days a week and dinner staying on the 4 nights a week that we currently have. We're meeting this either tomorrow or Friday to discuss, tomorrow or Thursday, sorry, to determine whether that date will stay as the 15th or whether we might shift that to a different date based on the new guidelines. So stay tuned for that information. Our relationship with Walgreens that we have formed through our HR department with Rocio, who's done a great job. We were the first corporate group in Transylvania County to work with Walgreens, who gets the vaccines from the federal program. So we have we're past 50% of the employees who've received at least the first dose, and most of the second dose by the first week of April. If we take in the second 50%, if they get started here shortly, depending on whether they get the Johnson & Johnson or the other two, it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending which ones they get, for them to be fully vaccinated. So hopefully the timing of this will work out. That's why we chose the 15th sort of as our first time frame of when we think we can open most safely, where a good percentage of our employees will be fully vaccinated, and hopefully a large percent of our membership as well. So Mercy Care and Walgreens are also, we're talking to them once they get enough vaccines, which if you talk or you hear what the governor was talking today, they still feel that later April or first part of May, vaccination should be very easily, readily available. Once they are, we'll probably still have an on-site vaccination program here for anyone who hasn't got vaccinated yet. So we're talking to both Walgreens and urgent care to coordinate that. While the vaccinations are good news, new cases of COVID-19 are still occurring daily. Therefore, we still continue to do daily screenings for each employee. Thankfully, we still only had the 3 employees who've tested positive for COVID since the start of the pandemic. When you think about that, that's really good compared to how many people we have working here. And luckily, none of them had any serious symptoms. Currently, we have no employees away from work due to any COVID-19 issues with them or any family members. So that's also good news. It's been a while since we've had 100% capacity of employees with no issues with the COVID-19 pandemic. So currently, of the members who've reported it to our administration office, there's been 495 now. Members that report they have got both either the single dosage or both dosages of the 2-step vaccine. So it's around 21% of the population if you use 2,400 as the overall population. There's probably more than that 21% because remember our program is voluntary. I'm sure there's people who've gotten vaccinated who have not let us know in the administration office. So, you know, we're in, I think, in a very good state of where we are. So if you assume this similar pace and that it takes 2 weeks or 6 weeks, depending on which vaccination you get to be fully vaccinated from the 1-shot or 2-shot, it would most likely seems like sometime during the latter part of April, first part of May, that we'd have a good majority of the membership fully vaccinated by May 1st. So we'll keep track of that as we go, and that hopefully will give us some more information on how we can reopen in the most safe manner. The lake dredging project is in its final phase. We're working over at Lake Wantesca now. Hopefully that will be dredged out this week with the piece of equipment that we have rented to the end of the month. We currently can't lower the lake at Wantesca right now with all the rain we had the last couple of weeks. There's a landowner that lives down below where the dam is, and if we release too much water, we'll flood him out. So we're in communication with him to make sure that we can release water at the proper flow. It's supposed to rain again this week. So if we have to wait until after the equipment, the big piece of equipment leaves, we can do anything around the edges or docks with our current equipment that we own. So, because we do have to lower it at some point so that we can scope out the infrastructure and make sure that all is well so that we can fill out our requirement for the dam permits. The clubhouse or the golf course irrigation project's complete. All the GPS coordinates have been entered into the software. So we're in good shape there. The project came in ahead of schedule and below budget. So those are 2 good things as well. The clubhouse re-roofing project is now complete. The pole shed and re-roofing project at the golf maintenance facility was also completed. On a community-wide note, you'll hear a little bit more about this from Mary later on in the meeting. But Earth Day is April 22nd, and we're happy to report that many of the community organizations will be helping celebrate that day, and she'll go into some more details on that. On the connectivity issue, we've negotiated a very good lease terms with a company called Diamond Towers, which is a different company than we were originally negotiating with, but they came in sort of at the last hour with a very favorable terms than the original supplier was giving us. And likely it will still entail the same tower, but they have some more different capabilities than the original company had, where we might be able to do 1 tower and some other mini antennas off the clubhouse potentially to improve the signal even further. And they have some other great options as far as how they can work to minimize the or improve the aesthetics of the potential towers. So we're excited about working with them. Everything was signed the other day and was sent up to them. So hopefully here the next, I'd say 30 days, we'll have another good update on that. They're already working with the county on permitting. The other advantage to their agreement was they agreed to an 18-month option instead of a 24-month term. So they're looking to try to have the tower up within 18 months versus the 24 months of the original provider. Some of the Wi-Fi hotspots around the community have not been working properly. during the storm almost a month ago or a month and a half ago with the lightning. We did lose some of those. Anyone who's listening to the news lately, getting chips has been a difficult scenario for a lot of the vendors. So we've been waiting on the product. I think some of it came in, right, Robert, but not all of it yet. But we should hopefully have the rest of them in shortly and get that up and running here in the near future. On a security note, management and the task force continue their work and will continue to update the community on changes to the access control procedures. The rollout for everyone to begin using the website or mobile app or the automated phone system went relatively smoothly. But a special thanks to Sharon, Lynn, and Chris in administration who worked with a lot of people who were struggling to get either on the website or download properly onto their mobile device. And they worked with all of them to work through that process, and they're still available for anyone who has not signed up for any of those for the website or the mobile app. If you have any issues or problems, feel free to call either of them and they will help you through the process. This is also the time we go through and give you sort of a security update of any incidents that happened within the community. So year to date, we've had 9 county sheriffs enter the community responding to particular cases. We've had 26 entries from Conacy Fire Department or the EMS as a combination. We've had 2 motor vehicle accidents, 1 unauthorized use of the amenities that was reported and found, 5 reports of suspicious behavior that ended up not being suspicious, 1 noise complaint, 3 after-hour construction complaints, 2 construction site violations, 8 speeding citations/fines, 3 parking citations/fines, 2 tailgating citations, both to owners who got new vehicles and decided they didn't want to get a new barcode right away. But we were able to verify that through our camera system with Robert's help to verify the license plate and who owned the vehicle. We've had 1 complaint on after-hours lighting. And unfortunately, we had 9 resident assistant actions, which is where someone calls security for help. And normally those are relatively simple. System might be a flat tire, might be I locked my keys in my car. And usually Spencer and his crew can help those individuals, and we try our best to do so. We had 7 wellness checks, and we've had no reports of any other types of thefts or vandalism in the community this year. Obviously, most of you are aware that we had a bomb threat in local downtown Brevard. Obviously, didn't impact us, but we are tracking to determine, when we hear more information about the cause and why and what the theory was this individual had, what he was trying to accomplish. If there's anything that would potentially impact Conacy Falls, we will make sure that we take appropriate action to improve the safety within the community if need be. Year to date, we are, on a financial perspective, we're $375,000 better than budget. Most of that is due to the 2020 COVID-19 CARES Act, and then now also the new stimulus package, which was approved a couple weeks ago, where we're allowed to take payroll tax credits for any of the employees that we retained during the pandemic. So in the latest approved package, that CARES Act was continued actually through the end of the year, but we don't believe that we're going to be able to qualify through the whole year because once you get to full operations, which it sounds could happen, mid-year potentially, I believe that we would not qualify anymore for those payroll tax credits. But we are getting an opinion on that, and we will determine what we can and can't do as far as that goes. The auditors are continuing their review of the 2020 financial results, and they will have the first draft or the initial draft to us probably the first to second week of April. Once that is reviewed and approved, we will post that on the community website, obviously. From a other top 5, which is our marketing, we did get the task force got a report and presentation on phase 1 of that branding initiative last week, and it's being reviewed to determine the next steps. Once the next steps are determined and what the potential costs would be, the task force will make a new recommendation to the board for consideration. So again, we're in the first phase, and we're positive about the direction we're headed. We felt very good about the report that was presented. We had a couple questions and comments, and we're going back and forth with Project 13 on that. And and we'll come back with the recommendation, like we said, shortly to the board on the next steps. The Facility Planning Committee and management continues to work on different options and potentials. As we stated previously, the Activity and Wellness Center, while it was on hiatus, is still in our minds, and we are still looking at options of, where, how, size, that we could potentially build an activity wellness center that would meet the same needs, or at least meet most of the needs that we originally had proposed, but maybe a little bit more cost effective than the original proposal. Unfortunately, right now, anyone who's trying to get any work done on their house or anything else, getting contractors to commit to anything right now is difficult, and the pricing of raw materials is going through the roof as well. So it's we just want to do our due diligence to make sure that we can get back a proposal and a potential estimate that's reasonable and that we feel is secure. So hopefully in the next couple of months, the FPC will make a recommendation to the board on those options, and when the board looks at those and feels confident in a proposal, obviously we will communicate that to the community. The lower deck project, which is has started, which will be great. We're going to be able to enclose about another 1,400 square feet under the new waterproof upper deck at the clubhouse. So that will be another nice multi-purpose room. And we hope to have that finished within the next 45 days or so. But again, getting these guys to show up regularly is difficult, but we're working on it. The fencing project along the maintenance gate along Carson Creek Road by Equestrian Center, that should hopefully be installed the first or second week of April as well. Just to give you an idea on talking about materials, the price of chain link has went up, and it was a 10 to 12 week lead time just to buy chain link fence. So it tells you how crazy it is. Hopefully starting next week or the week after, Spencer and his crew will begin the organic garden expansion. And that shouldn't take us very long. That'll probably take about a 30-day build out to get that complete. So that should accommodate, I think, pretty much everyone on the waiting list. I think there's about 23 people on the waiting list, and we think we can get at least 20, if not 21 plots there within that new organic garden. So there's a couple joint projects that, well, actually mostly the Conisee Falls Golf Association has been working on, where they used some of their funds from last year because they didn't have any tournaments, so they had a lot of money in their tournament fund. So they helped upgrade some of the golf shop entry area. They created a rock edge garden out here in front, put up the new rail, split rail fencing along the putting green and 18 green. And then they also purchased some new granite tee signs and some new that are out there now, and then some tee markers that will be going out April 1st. So we're looking forward to working with them to continue their improvements on the golf course. We did complete the new boat launch dock at Toccoa Park. That is done. And we thank the Fishing Club for providing the funding for that dock. There'll be a nice additional amenity for either kayak launchers or anyone using that boat launch. Home sales have been crazy in here, as everyone knows. They were crazy, but now we have the opposite issue. As I wrote this report, it was 10, but it may be even less again. But there was 10 homes on the MLS. In the month of February, we had 11 home sales versus 6 the year before. Year to date, we have 22 versus 23 last year, which sounds good, except last year at the same time, there's 60 or 70 units in inventory on the market. Now there's 10. So the odds of us being able to continue to meet numbers from last year are probably not realistic. But we did bring, when we budgeted, we did do a more conservative total for 2021, which I think is potentially we can meet. Wellness classes began last week as a pop-up on the outdoor area at Atagahi. But again, based on what was said today, we may be able to start looking at options to move those indoors, as well as continuing to do some outdoors, because people do like the outdoors on a nice day. So we'll be talking about that as well based on the new executive order. The pool, I get a question about the pool all the time when we had that nice little, whatever they call it here, Indian summer last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was almost 80 degrees. We see that didn't last, but the goal will be when we get to a point where we think there's 7 or 10 days of good weather without any frost or freezing, we will try to get that pool open, which hopefully will put that way ahead of the Memorial Day weekend, which is our traditional time to open it. So hopefully, sometime early May, we'll be able to have that pool open, if not before. And then I'd also like to remind everyone, just from a public notice, the Ladies Luncheon Committee will be hosting an Easter dinner food drive tomorrow at Ottagahi Park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. To help benefit those in need by distributing the collected items to the Sharing House and the Bread of Life. So we encourage everyone to participate by stopping by with any food donations, or obviously cash contributions are always welcome. So please do so if you can help out. We did also have 2 questions that were sent into the board for this meeting, and I have no problem going over those and answering those because I put answers together for those if you'd like. Okay, I'll do that. So the first question that was submitted for the board meeting was, and these are written verbatim, so if there's someone says it doesn't sound right, that's not my fault. I did exactly how they were sent in. I have a couple of questions concerning the expense that the maintenance of the golf course costs our community each year. How can the golf course operation do a better job of covering their expenses and be less of a burden on our community as a whole? The community has put out considerable sums of money for the driving range and irrigation upgrades. Can members be charged more money for golf memberships, green fees be increased for guests, or increased sales of golf memberships outside of our community to help subsidize the increased costs? Thanks so much in advance for your response. So, this is always a hot topic every time we go through the budget process and anytime thereafter, it seems. So we do know that all the amenities here have an inherent cost, but we're cognizant of the fact of the golf course being one of the main assets like the clubhouse. We appreciate that there is a concern about the cost each year to maintain the golf amenity. In fact, we have increased both the membership fee and outside green fees over the last 3 years. The membership fee is 30% higher now than it was in 2018 and is now comparable to other similar golf course communities in the area, which obviously from a fee perspective is our competition, which pretty much dictates what the overall market will bear. We have also raised the green fees for outside by $5 per round for outside play, which is again in line with the market price of our competitors. So if Etowah Valley or Crooked Creek is charging 60, we can't just charge 80 because we want to charge 80. There's a market within the area of people that are outside the community and visiting or live here. They're going to compare those pricing and determine what that fair market value is. So we have raised it, but we also feel that it's at a level that's competitive to our surrounding market. Raising prices too quickly and dramatically can sometimes have a reverse impact where the loss of your customer base is greater than the revenue bought in by the increase. In other words, if you increase the membership by $1,000 and you lose 50 members, you end up losing money as opposed to gaining money. So there's always that balance, but we always look at that and determine what makes sense to do going forward. It should also be noted that the last 2 years have been extraordinary, with 2019 being one of the wettest on record, in 2020, a global pandemic, which forced us to limit outside play on the course, with both having a negative impact on our golf revenues. The good news is we are seeing positive 2021 trends, with rounds of play increasing year over year, and the driving range fees up over 50% year over year. So if you look out now at the driving range half an hour ago, almost every slot was filled up. So the driving range project will over time pay for itself. And like I say, over 50% increase from last year, which was almost 50% higher than the year before the driving range was complete. So, it's a large amount of money that's being bringing in. And also from a cost perspective, the new irrigation system should save around $30,000 a year. That's about what we used to spend every year just in repairing the old system. Most of that will go away. And then 30% reduction in the amount of water being used. We're now seeing about a $20,000 a year savings in payroll, with us trying to do more with less. And so far it seems to be working. The course is in pretty good shape, especially considering we were dealing with a irrigation project for 3 months and having to now do the repairs to bring all those areas back into shape. So we feel that with all these items, the overall golf program's heading in the right direction, with the goal being to keep the amount of expenses over revenues to a minimum so that increases in community assessments for golf going forward stays flat or lower going forward. The second question that came in, is there any consideration being given to eliminating the permanent guest list since some CF members have been reimbursed or given discounts for adding outside citizens to their Coniston Falls permanent guest list? I realize this is probably a sensitive area, but an important aspect of Coniston Falls overall security, and more important, that the membership understand this vulnerable access to Coniston Falls and its amenities. So the answer to that question is, as mentioned in the recent board business letter, we were aware of some members using access to the community to help negotiate or barter for free services. It's very unfortunate that some people use access to the community as a bargaining chip at the expense of the rest of the members' enjoyment of the amenities. For the people that for the members who have been caught in this activity, that issue has been addressed and appropriate action taken. Obviously, we don't know about all the scenarios, but we do know about the ones that we were advised of. This has highlighted a weakness in the current system, especially with regards to permanent guest access. Management and the Access Control Task Force have been reviewing the current policy, and most likely will be making changes to the permanent guest policy, and perhaps the extent of how long a visitor pass will be active before having to be renewed. In fact, an initial plan was discussed last week at the board planning session, and with a few tweaks will most likely be rolled out soon. So we would advise you to please be on the lookout for further communication on the permanent guest policy and potentially other changes to the access control policies that we feel will help improve the security and safety of the community. So those were the only two questions. If any of the board members later want to add anything, their 2 cents into my responses, they can feel free to do so. So with that, that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Jim. Now you can see maybe why I didn't think a president's report was so required. I do want to have a couple of add-ons. One, when we were discussing reporting your being vaccinated, we did hear some pushback from some people about that was medical information and should be kept private. This is all we are really interested in are the numbers. It's not like we are keeping your name, not like you're going to get a follow-up call, why haven't you got your vaccine yet? It's just so we know kind of where we are in covering in coverage as far as everybody getting vaccinated. Second, when you were talking about member, I forget what you called it, but in the security report and members being assisted, I remembered I was one of them. And for those that don't know, they will come and actually, if you have a dead battery, come jump the car for you. And it was a big help to me, and they were prompt. I really appreciate it. And the other on golf, I think I would like us all to keep in mind that the variable cost on golf is minimal. So we're better off generating rounds of play than increasing prices to where we do reduce play, but get a higher price when someone does play. Those were my thoughts on it. Now I would like to ask Jim to give us the treasurer's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to convey some financial information for the recent year ended December 31st, 2020. Next sheet, please. Our net results for 2020 resulted in being $225,000 better than budget. That is, our revenue exceeded our disbursements by $225,000. Now, some of the components associated with that were we received $361,000 under the CARES Employee Retention Act, which allowed us to keep employees employed and working, but and also reduced levels for food and beverage during that period of time. Food and beverage lost $422,000 versus a budgeted amount of $347,000. But the restaurant remained open for to-go orders and at 50% capacity. But because of the limitations, our food and beverage revenue, of course, was down by $525,000. The golf revenue for the year was $100,000 less than the budget of $871,000, as guest play on our course was limited for most of the year. We had a small reduction in the revenue for the Wellness Center of $43,000 in that it was closed for half of the year. Total revenues for the community were $8.7 million, and they were short of budget by $109,000. The expenses of $5.7 million were under budget by $571,000, due mostly to payrolls and cost of goods sold savings. Now, during the year, we maintained at the end of the year a strong financial position with substantial liquidity and little debt. At the end of 2020, we had $6.3 million in cash and investments versus $6.8 million in 2019. So that's $6.3 million with virtually no debt. Expenditures from the capital reserve, the infrastructure reserve, and the amenity fund exceeded income sources by $500,000. Now, this occurs occasionally as major projects are undertaken and completed, and all of those completed and worked on last year were done based upon the budget. Projected capital and infrastructure spending from reserves over the next 10 years is estimated to be approximately $18 million. 2020 was sort of a banner year for real estate here in Coniston. We had 8 home starts, a little bit less than 2019, but there were 145 homes sold, which was more than 138 in 2019. And we had about the same number of private lot sales and Coniston Falls lot sales combined. In 2020, $100,000 of amenity fees supported the operations or our expenses. We received $1,080,000 in amenity fees in 2020. And annual property fees of $1,350,000 were $135,000 greater than the budgeted amount. A brief summary of the golf and clubhouse operations. The golf deficit, as I mentioned before, was $541,000 versus a $532,000 budget. Food and beverage was $422,000 deficit versus $347,000, and Wellness Center had a $39,000 budget, actual versus a budget of $12,000. So the totals were the budget of $1,200,000. The budget of $867,000 versus the actual of $1,001,002. However, we did overall come in better than budget for the year on a cash basis. For the year 2020, Coniston Falls maintained its strong financial position with substantial liquidity and little debt. We experienced significant actual differences in revenue and expenses compared to the 2020 budget. The Coniston Falls Board and Administration adjusted operations in response to the COVID-19 impact and guidelines as needed. In 2021, we expect to expand amenity offerings in a safe manner and complete planned community projects as budgeted. The Coniston Falls financial position will be monitored daily, adjusted as needed to meet the 2021 budget and maintain the financial strength the community has accumulated in recent years. The CARES Employee Retention Credit, as Jim Whitmore mentioned a little bit earlier, will continue into 2021. And with those revenues and continued monitoring of the budget and opening the amenities, we believe we could be on budget for the year 2021. We'd like to thank all of the Coniston Falls members for supporting the community in a safe manner as we plan for more normal operations in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And also would like to thank the Finance Committee for their good work. They, I think, don't get enough recognition at times.
Yeah, well, you know, just to mention that we have 3 members we'd like to thank that are leaving the committee this year as their terms expire. Rich Guntner, Chuck Dunn, and Jan Newsom, who have worked very hard on that committee over the last, almost each one for 6 years. So thanks again.
All right. Now, Mary Freudenberg would like to discuss Care for Our Natural Environment and Earth Day update. So, Mary?
Hey, everyone. Sorry that you couldn't be here in the room with us. Just remember the camera adds 10 pounds. It's not the COVID 10, it's just the camera. Before
Likely story.
Before I give an update on our Care for Our Natural Environment initiative, I just want to send out a big thank you to all of you that volunteered over the last 3 weeks to begin the inventory of our hemlock trees. This effort was led by member Lisa Smith and involved over 20 volunteers, mostly from the Trail Stewards group. And it involved assessing our hemlocks along 2 roadways, as well as along the 18+ miles of hiking trails in the community. The data was collected and will be sent to the Hemlock Restoration Initiative for analysis, and then they'll be coming out to Coniston on March 30th to take a look at the condition of our trees to determine which of those trees are candidates for treatment. So for those of you not familiar with this initiative, the ultimate goal for this hemlock project is to identify all of our hemlock trees in Coniston, both in the common areas and the private lots, so that we can return as many of these trees as possible back to a healthy state. And please be aware that this is a multi-year, multi-phase initiative, so there'll be plenty of opportunity for those of you that are jumping up and down on your couches right now saying, oh, I want to get involved. So there'll definitely be opportunities for you to get involved going forward. And once again, thank you to everyone that took time out of their day the last few weeks to help us move this forward. I also have some updates on Earth Day activities that'll be taking place here in Coniston. Jim mentioned earlier that Earth Day is being celebrated Thursday, April 22nd, and we have a lot going on. The fishing club will be doing a general cleanup of the boat storage areas and cleaning up a circuit of each lake, and also cleaning up the 2 RV parks. Mountain gardeners will be planting and replanting the butterfly garden, which is by the overlook, and they'll also have a couple of tables at the gardens with printed materials, the landscape handbook, and some light refreshments. And several members of Mountain Gardeners will be on hand to talk to residents about native and invasive plants and those plants that do better in Coniston, as opposed to some that just get devastated because of our deer population. And when the golf course is closed on April 20th and 21st, the Coniston Golf Club will be working to enhance the environment on and around the golf course. And a shout out to Tom Ranke and Peter Chumley, because they are in the process of working with maintenance to install 20 new bluebird houses, yay, that are going to be installed on the golf course to replace some of the ones that are in desperate need of repair. The Adopt a Highway group will be picking up trash along 276 and the surrounding roads, and the Coniston Bike Club will be picking up trash along its designated roadways around Island Ford Road. So if anyone would like additional information on any of these activities, you can reach out to Myron from the Coniston Fishing Club, Sherry Bowen from Mountain Gardeners, Kurt Stiegel at the Golf Club, the Golf Pro Office, Jim Core, Adopt a Highway Group, and Colleen DeTillo from the Coniston Bike Club. And there'll also be additional updates in the Friday flyer. So if there's anyone or any additional organizations or groups that would like to plan or do something for Earth Day, please reach out to Walter Perry. You can email him at wperry04@gmail.com. And again, a big thank you to Walter Perry for coordinating all these Earth Day activities, and to all our volunteers that spend countless hours making Coniston a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Next to last thing on our agenda is holding a vote on the updated rules for hiking and on the hiking trails. And so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the revised hiking rules and regulations. So moved. Do I hear a second? All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We do have a spot for comments and questions, but since we can't have you here, we've answered the questions you sent in. Do any board members have any comments they would like to make at this point? Seeing none, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Thank you so much for attending, and that concludes our meeting today. Have a good